Welcome to Generating Gratitude, a look at personal growth in a grateful life. What follows is not professional advice or medical recommendation, but stories and perspectives about living with gratitude. Now, here is your host, Joe Volk.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another blazing edition of Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. Very grateful that I can be with you. You know, we start out every show with the Joe line, you can't be hateful and you can't be grateful at the same time. Grateful today for a guest. My guest is John Kaczynski. He's a county commissioner, Saginaw County Commissioner, SVSU. He's the Vice President of Government Affairs. And more importantly, the reason we have him on the show today is John is a cancer survivor. John, welcome to Generating Gratitude.
Good morning, Joe. Thank you.
John, if you could please give us your story. Where did about discovering that you had cancer?
That journey goes back to 2007. I was 27 years old, and I had a small bump on my right arm pop up, and I thought I did something to my muscles. I was rowing at the gym, and I went to see an orthopedic surgeon, and he says, well, let's get an MRI with contrast. And at the time, I was like, oh, I'm too young for anything bad to happen. Cancer wasn't even on the radar. And over the next 5 weeks, I find out they did an MRI with contrast, had to go down to Beaumont Hospital at the time, and had a biopsy and found out I was diagnosed with synovial sarcoma, which is a type of bone cancer. And throughout 2007, I had 6 different treatments or 6 cycles of chemotherapy over at My Michigan Midland. An oncologist by the name of Dr. Hurtubise, who was a fantastic oncologist, treated me. Went back down to Beaumont, had the tumor removed in July of 2007, and I was cancer-free at that time. It was a great feeling, but then unfortunately in 2008, I had a small spot pop up in my left lung, and got transferred over to the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and they did what they call a video-assisted thoracic surgery, a VAT, and they removed, it was about a 2-centimeter spot in my left lung. And then I was cancer-free after that, and I was approaching the 10-year mark in 2016, was feeling great, everything was going great. I was running, 3, 4, 5 miles every other day. And I go in, and I'm told I have a softball-sized tumor in my right lung, and so it was horrible. But at U of M, they gave me 7 cycles of chemo that time, and later that year they said, okay, it was a softball size. It got reduced to something about a tennis ball size, and they said, okay, it's operable. We're going to take it out. December of that year, they removed the tumor. At that appointment, the thoracic surgeon told me, I said, will I ever be able to run again? He says, well, he's like, we removed some of your left lung. We've removed a big chunk of your right lung. He said, it's probably going to be impossible for you to run long distances. And so I took that as a challenge in 2017. And I had never run a half marathon in my life, so I made an objective. I said, I'm going to run the Detroit International Half that year. And so he told me, he says, February 12th, it was 2 months exactly after my right lung surgery. I went out for my first run, and my gosh, was it horrible. I was only able to run about a quarter mile at a time. And I finally got up to 3, 4, 5 miles a couple months later. And then not only did I run a half marathon, the Detroit International Half that October, I did a thing called the Ragnar Relay.
Okay, yeah.
You've heard of those? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, with about 16 other people from Muskegon all the way up to Traverse City. And so I did both of those in 2017, and I felt great about myself. It was wonderful. I was grateful. And then I was cancer-free for another 9 years. I was coming up on 10 years. And in October 2024, I was doing push-ups, and I broke my right humerus. It just snapped while I was on number 7. And I hope nobody ever has to hear their bones crack like that. But went in, and everybody's looking at my arm. You know, they did an X-ray, and they said, I had radiation therapy back in 2007, and they all assumed the radiation therapy caused the bone to weaken, and that's why it broke. And so we was going down U of M. They were trying to get it to heal. Wasn't healing. So I got referred to Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic looked at it, did a lot of different tests, and they said, yes, the radiation did cause the break, but the radiation caused a new cancer to form, which caused the break. And so I was the 1 out of 1,000 chances from the radiation therapy of developing a new form of cancer. So it was not a reoccurrence. It was a new form of cancer. However, it still was sarcoma. So which limited my treatment options. So I went back down to U of M, met with my oncologist, and she goes to me, she's like, John, she's like, in my opinion, she's like, there's a lot of options. She's like, I can't tell you which one's going to be the best. And so we went with chemotherapy and a new immunotherapy. A lot of people probably heard the advertisements called Keytruda. Medical terminology is Pembro. And so I went through 4 cycles of a combination of adriamycin, which if you ever have chemo, it's called the nickname's the Red Devil, along with Pembro. And I had 4 cycles of that. And then in late April, the surgeon at Mayo Clinic said, he said, I think we've shrunk it enough. He says, I can operate. But the textbook at the time was, you lose your arm.
Right.
If I went to pretty much anywhere else, I would have lost my arm. At Mayo, on the other hand, he said, I think we can salvage your arm. And I never want to hear the term salvage again. I want to say, can you save my arm? Salvage was a horrible term. And then we had surgery, and I went in. It's still a 25% chance I could lose my right arm. And there was a lot of things they said, we might have to do skin grafts and take from the other part of your body. And I went in there, and it was miraculous. Came out, right arm was intact. They didn't have to take a skin graft from anywhere on my body. They moved my bicep muscle up, my pectoral muscle up, was able to seal it up. And I'm here 8-9 weeks later with an arm. And then we found out just a couple weeks ago that the pathology report came back and said, we had 100% necrosis, which meant 100% of the cancer was killed in the arm.
All right.
Which never happens.
That's a great thing. Now, John, I want to go back to the first time you were diagnosed, because I'm always fascinated. I've talked to a few cancer survivors. Now, what goes through your head the first time they say the C word?
All 3 times. Shock. You can't think of anything else other than death, because you just connect cancer to death because so many people still die from cancer. Fear sets in, and then about a week later, in all 3 cases for me, I kind of came out of it, and I said, okay, I need to put faith in what's going to take place, and it really was faith that was guiding me in all 3 diagnoses. That once I got through the fear and the shock, my faith helped guide me. And then once I really got a month past it and I got into treatment, I was no longer worried about a possible bad outcome. I was very much focused on getting from treatment to treatment to treatment. And it was always saying, focus on the day that's at hand. Don't focus on the next day, and don't dwell on the past.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like what we do with substance abuse.
Correct.
The one day at a time. And one of the things that we do as humans, which isn't one day at a time thing, but we tend to want to fill in the blanks. And by that I mean, we, at least me anyway, when I fill in the blanks, it's always negative. So when somebody says cancer, like you had mentioned, you automatically think, you fill in the blanks to the worst possible scenario.
Exactly.
And how long did it take you to switch over from filling in the blanks to that what you have now, your one day at a time? Because that's a one day at a time is learned. That's not like automatically, okay, what do we know today?
Yep. It was really that first milestone of getting through the first treatment. Once I got through that first cycle of treatment, then I started saying, okay, I got to get to the next cycle, which meant staying healthy, not getting sick. I felt bad because I told everybody, I was like, I can't be around you. I got to wear a face mask everywhere I go, because it's not only that I'm immunocompromised, I don't want to miss a cycle for my next treatment, which might not have the same positive outcomes. And so I was very much concentrating on, and I've got a 6-year-old turning 7 this coming Saturday, and I told him, I said, I can't be around you, George. I have to quarantine myself when my white blood cell counts were down. So I was very much concentrating on that health. And it's not learned. It's just something that your body biologically says you have to do for survival.
Yeah. John Kaczynski is with us, cancer survivor, his amazing story. We're going to come right back, and when we come right back, we'll talk more about the diagnosis and gratitude and his amazing will even after 3 diagnoses. You're listening to Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. John Kaczynski is our guest. He's talking about not 1, not 2, but his 3 cancer diagnoses. Was when they told you the C word the second time, John, or the third time, how did that change, from the first time?
I thought the first time when I was done. Then the second time, you always read the statistics, and even when they tell you not to read the statistics, you still read the statistics. And in my in my cancer, when it comes back a second time or even a third time, the survivability goes down. And so I was thinking on the second time was, this is not good. This is definitely not good. And those 30 days until I met with the oncologist, they said, John, we have a treatment plan in place, right? There is an end goal here, right? And the second time around, they reassured me. They said, John, this isn't terminal. This isn't chronic. This is something we can treat. This is something we can put into remission. And so after the second time, once I got past the 2-year mark, I got my port taken out. I'm like, okay, that chapter of my life is put behind me. And every year I got past for the appointments, I tell people, it's like, I always feel bad for those that have to go in for health appointments on regular checkups, especially cancer, because it's an unknown. You don't know if you're feeling, if you're feeling bad, something's going on.
Right.
But like my second time, I was feeling fine. I just run up 5 miles the day before, and I go in and they say I have a softball-sized tumor in my right lung. That just scared the heck out of me. And my wife said, she's, well, you did have a little bit of a cough that was hanging on. I wasn't processing it, right? So after I went through that, so then the second time I was like, okay, this could very well come back again. Well, again, I'm getting 9 years out. Okay, this might be it. And then it came back again for a third time. And
yeah, I admire your courage, because to recover and start again and, all right, this time is it. All right, I'm feeling great. Yep. Everything's good. And then whap.
Yep.
Well, like somebody just with a 2x4 in the back of the head.
Yep.
Whap.
Yep. Exactly.
And it's like, what do you mean?
Yep.
I'm doing everything right. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yep.
And now you're telling me what?
Yep. Exactly. It just feels like a sack of potatoes hit you. And the first time I didn't really cry when I had the diagnosis. Second time I cried. Third time I just broke down.
Right.
It's just how much can one person take?
How much more can you take?
How much more can you take? And I prayed a lot about it. It's perseverance. It's staying positive, right? And the third time I sat there, it's like the chemo options are not going to be available to me. Like I looked at my wife, I said, this is probably not going to be a good scenario. I mean, the third time around, I was going to the funeral parlor, picking out the casket, getting everything in line, because I sat there. I was like, I don't want this burden to be on my family.
Right. If
I end up getting a terminal diagnosis. We went in, it was not a terminal diagnosis, and it was positive. But the people around, I'll tell you, in Frankenmuth, every person, yesterday I was at church, and I've been praying for you. And I keep telling everybody, says every prayer has been helping, because I said, I just feel this unbelievable energy and power getting through this third time. And I didn't think I really had it the first time or the second time. I can also say, going through it twice, you kind of, there's not the unknown factor. You know what's going to happen. And I always, whenever I see somebody on social media or I hear about them, I always tell them, I was like, feel free to call me. I'm happy to talk to you. But I never want to invade somebody's space when they're going through, like I was telling you, the first 30 days or 1 month of fear until you get to that first treatment.
When you have a diagnosis like you had, now I was in the hospital about 5-6 years ago. I had to wait for a surgery for like 6 days for strokes, and I found that nighttime wasn't my friend. Because being alone at night with your thoughts, I would imagine you probably had a lot of sleepless nights. Just because you just lay there and you're alone and it's quiet and you think about it.
The first time I did. The second time, I read so many books about meditation and being at peace with yourself and praying. Every night I would kind of do a breathing exercise and I'd say a little prayer and I'd go to bed. And I just trained myself. And this is really my day-to-day life now. There's very little that I fear. You know, I told you the third time I got hit by a sack of potatoes and I feared. I really had no sleepless nights this time. Really, it was maybe the first 2 to 3 nights that it was the shock that was keeping me sleepless. But it was meditation, it was praying, it was just having faith that a new day would come and it would be better.
And that's important. You know, you brought up a very important point about training your mind, because the human mind, like you at the first time and me, you know, with my stuff, your first go-to is negative. Your first go-to is worst case scenario.
Yep.
And you really have to, like you did, train your mind to push that out and to replace it with positive thoughts, or
Exactly.
replace it with recovery thoughts. And one of the worst inventions ever, I think, was the internet.
Yep.
Because I don't know if you're like me, but you go to the internet and you're reading everything on the...
Yep. You become an internet doctor.
Right. And, yeah. And you start identifying, well, wait, I have that. Wait, I have that. Oh, yeah, that.
Yep.
That. Oh.
Yep.
When did you shut the internet off and just go,
This
I
time,
can't?
This time I didn't even look. I didn't even look online. You know, I relied on my doctors and health professionals that I knew to talk to. After the second treatment, I began to go to a holistic homeopathic doctor, Center for Holistic Medicine down in West Bloomfield. And I'd go down there once every 2 weeks to get a high-dose vitamin C injection. And, I mean, they take 26 vials of blood every 6 months, and they look at all my blood levels. Oh, it's a lot of blood. And I always
have anything left?
I always ask if I need a transfusion afterwards. But they look at all the levels. They look at hormones. They look at everything, and they adjust my vitamin intake according to that. And I will say between the second and third one, the doctors keep saying, they're like, we don't know how you were able to have this cancerous bone and tissue in your right arm and it didn't metastasize. They said you're almost a walking miracle. And I attribute that to a number of things, but I also attribute it to me continuing to go get that high dose vitamin C and a lot of the treatments at that clinic, along with every morning, my wife will never do it, but I juice wheatgrass and I take a little bit of iodine in a glass. I do all my vitamins. And that they said whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because they said that really they said it should not have stayed contained, and it did.
Wow. Yeah, your story just blows me away. You know, first time, second time, third time. What have you learned through all three?
Faith. I've been drawn closer to my faith than ever. You know, it's always, you hear this, and it's always, you know, some people seeing is believing. Some people you don't need to see and believe, and experience it made me a believer. I was telling my wife when I went in for this third surgery, you know, when you're told that by the doctor, you have a 25% chance of losing your right arm. It doesn't matter if it's 5%
Right.
or 95%. You're still thinking worst case scenario.
Right. It's that filling in the blanks, and you're filling in the blanks. Okay, what happens? I lose my arm, and how do I do it? And what?
And I had a good friend. She says, my grandfather had one arm, and he was able to shovel, and he was able to do all these things throughout his entire life. And I'm sitting there going, great, but I still want my right arm.
I still want my right arm.
And they're wheeling me into the OR on that surgery day at Mayo Clinic. And it was every other time I'd been wheeled into any operating room, never had fear. I sat there, like, I'm in the best hands possible to treat this. This time I was scared, and I said a little prayer, and all of a sudden this just calmness came over me. And all I'm thinking to myself was, well, the anesthesiologist started putting the drugs in me.
Yeah.
And I looked at the anesthesiologist and said, hey, I was like, you guys are running the drugs through me already? He looks at me, he's like, sir, you're not even hooked up yet.
No.
And so I was like, what? And then all of a sudden I sat there. I just had this complete calm, ease, no fear. And I sat there. I think the Holy Spirit's with me. And I told Martha, I told my wife afterwards, I says, I knew I was going to keep my arm. Everything was going to be okay. And I was at ease. I was at peace with myself. Whatever was going to happen was going to happen. And then I wake up 10 hours later, and I didn't know at the time because I was so out of it for another 6 to 8 hours. I finally saw my hand, and I realized I had my right hand. And you've been on drugs for so long, all you see is this. There's this covering over my right arm, and I see my right hand. So it's one of those mind tricks.
Yeah.
I couldn't actually feel my right hand because I couldn't see my arm.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden I saw my arm, and I was like, I can feel my hand. And that night was horrible. They had to wake me up every hour on the hour to make sure I was doing this with my hand and my arm. And the surgeon came in the next morning. He was so happy because he says we did everything that we said we were going to do and better.
Oh, amazing. John, we're going to have to take another break. I've got a lot of questions coming up about the power of faith and the power of community, which both are really important. And we'll get to those in just a few seconds after these commercial announcements. You're listening to Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. We'll be right back.
Now it's time for more great moments in gratitude with your host, Joe Volk.
And welcome back to Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. John Kaczynski is with us, thrice cancer survivor. And his story is very powerful. Now, John, I'm going to ask you a question. You mentioned faith. You mentioned faith is very important to you now. Was there ever a moment, with not the first or the second or the third, where you just were mad at God? You know, it's like, okay, really, God, why me? You know, the first time, okay, I'm 28 and I'm healthy. Second time, wait, we already did this stuff. Now the third time, really, God, what are you doing?
The third time, it made me question faith, and when I questioned it, I started asking myself, why am I questioning my faith? And I went to see our pastor at St. Lawrence in Frankenmuth, Brad Hubbard, who's an amazing pastor, and for the next 3 to 4 weeks, we have sat down for an hour like the way we're sitting down here, and all we did was we talked. We had some passages from the Bible that we read together, that we had discussions about that, because I had why me,
Right?
And we really did have a good spiritual discussion, because we talked about, why my grandmother at such a young age, or why his mother at a young age, right? And how do you navigate that? And you get back to a point of saying it's not our choice, right? God's got a plan. Some go earlier than others for reasons. Some are here and others are not here for reasons. We don't know those reasons until they become apparent to us. And I'm still trying to figure out that one for me. I believe I'm here to tell a story. I don't know what that is. I've lost a lot of close people in my life over the past 5 years to cancer. They were all women, all mentors to me. All were gone well before their age because of cancer. And as I was going through this journey, I wanted to pick up the phone and talk to them, and they weren't there. And so that's kind of really drove me of saying, you know what, they're not here, I still am. And there was one of my friends, she would have said, what the hell? Don't be crying over me. Live your life.
Right.
And that's what I did. And so, but my faith is stronger than ever. There's 2 points in my journey where I never question it. And I tell people, I was like, you can call me delusional, but I said it was really my faith. The one I just told you about was in the OR, The other one was when I was going through my first treatment. I mean, I was kind of demoralized, and I was inpatient when I was going through chemo 20 years ago. I wasn't able to outpatient. Now I'm able to outpatient, but back then you weren't. And I was there in the middle of the night.
Oh.
I was woken up, and my grandparents, who were both dead at that time, were standing at the foot of my bed, and they told me everything was going to be okay. They says, you're going to live a full life. You're going to get married. You're going to have a son. And lo and behold, I'm married and I have a son.
Wow.
And so I tell people, like, you can call that a delusion, but I say that was my faith. And I said my grandparents came down and told me everything was going to be okay. And after that moment, I felt reassurance that I was going to get through that. And even the second time, I wasn't married and I didn't have a son. And I said, you know what? They told me this is going to happen. And it did happen. And that's what actually kind of scared me. The third time I sat there and I went, well, they did say I was going to get married and have a son and I was going to live a life. Maybe this is it.
Yeah.
Right. And but no, it's, we're all here for a reason, and I don't question it. But it's drawn me closer to God, this experience.
Faith, I work with a lot of people in recovery. And when it comes to faith, because if you're familiar with Alcoholics Anonymous, the third step, turn my life over to the care of God as I understood him.
Yeah.
That's a tough one for a lot of people beginning their recovery journey. And I believe that faith is a muscle.
I do too.
You start, it's weak when you first start out, but the way to build muscle is you go to the gym.
Yep.
Your faith grows like that. How long did it take your faith to grow?
I mean, I've always been, a spiritual person all throughout my life, but I really didn't know faith until that first experience. And I mean, it's blossomed, and every time I've gone through this kind of tribulation in my life, this crucible, my prayer has drawn me closer to the Lord, and growing my faith. And I agree with you with the working out context. It's just not going to church.
Right.
It's reflecting, it's praying on your own, however you pray or worship. And thinking about, and it's beyond just reading the Bible as well. It's really thinking about how do you live outside of church on Sunday. Spirituality is not 1 day a week, 1 hour a week.
Yeah, I'm going to be spiritual for between the hours of 7 and 8.
Yeah. It's 24/7, right? And there's it's not an easy journey. It's difficult for all of us, and it's usually when it gets difficult is when your faith helps you out the most.
Yes, faith is a very valuable tool. I also want to talk about, especially with substance abuse recovery, I call it the power of community. We have a saying where I get drunk, we stay sober. Explain. You mentioned your 5 friends. Explain that power of community. Because whenever negative stuff happens, we tend to want to isolate. We tend to want to I just want to be by myself. Yeah. And that's the worst possible thing that could happen.
Yep.
Explain how the power of community works in your recovery.
Yeah, it's the local community. So I live in Frankenmuth. It's that local community. It's the spiritual community, St. Lawrence. But the big one is the survivor community. I tell people, I work as a lobbyist. I work as, governmental and community affairs. So I'm in Lansing a lot. And there's a legislator down there that her and I, we got certain things in common. I'm a Republican. She's a Democrat. But the one thing that we have in common, we're both cancer survivors, and we were diagnosed very early in our lives. And I just remember we were having a chat like this, and there was 3 other people around the table. And when we found out we were both cancer survivors, the whole meeting got hijacked by that discussion, right? We just felt this connection to one another. And there's a thing in the community that it's that crucible that we've all gone through. We all share. It's like the bond of being in the Army, this band of brothers that you all go through training together or you've all experienced this situation together that you're drawn together. It's the same thing with survivors, and we sit there and we know what fear looks like. We know what the treatments look like. We know what it feels like when you have to go in for the appointments every 3 months or 6 months or a year, right? And you can lean on one another, whether you're going through it for the first time or going through it for the third time, right? That they'll always say, like, concentrate day by day. I've got a former student from Saginaw Valley. She is going through breast cancer right now, and her and I text back and forth from time to time. This is her first time, and I've said to her, I said, don't freak out. And she's been kind of telling me what's been going on in her life. And I told her, I said, I got the Patrick Stewart bald head look going on. I said, she will not. But I said, I've just continued to accept this from my first treatment on, and I kind of wear it as almost a point of pride of being a survivor as well. But on July 26th, there's an event down in Ann Arbor called Stomp Out Sarcoma. And so me as a survivor now, I try to make it a priority, whether it's Relay for Life or a Stomp Out Sarcoma event, that I try to go, get engaged, get people to donate back to the cause, and eventually beat cancer.
Wow. Because there's nothing like, me being an alcoholic. There's nothing more comforting than being in a room with other alcoholics, because we just know. Mm-hmm. You don't have to explain yourself. Yep. You don't have to people just automatically understand you. The acceptance is amazing.
Exactly.
Where you can laugh about really the most horrible stuff.
Yes.
Because you're in there.
You both experienced it.
Right.
Yes.
At meetings, we can laugh about, the time we were in jail.
Yep.
Which is a really horrible thing.
Yeah.
But
yep.
Because we know.
Yep.
Wow, this is fascinating. We're going to wrap this up in just a little bit. John Kaczynski is with us, cancer survivor 3 times. We'll be right back here on WSGW. Welcome back to Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. Going to wrap it up with John Kaczynski, 3-time cancer survivor. And before we went on break, we talked about the power of community, the power of being with people who have gone through or who are going through your experience. Yep. The people that just know it. And I did a campaign during the holiday season called The Power of a Text. And it's amazing how just a small text to somebody not only makes me feel better, but it might be that right time for that person.
Exactly.
And with cancer, I had a friend, and she used to do a podcast about her cancer. And she would talk to other cancer survivors and people going through, and the power that is just incredible, because it, like you had mentioned, you're not alone.
Correct. You know, when you feel alone, it's fear, anxiety, and it just spins out of control, especially if you're really alone.
Right.
It gets even worse. Right. If you got your family and friends around you, they might not have shared the same experience as you, but at least you've got that core group. But when you're alone, it's even worse. And but the larger group, a cancer survivor group, it's just you stop having this fear of like cancer equals death, because there's all these people that have survived it, right?
Yes.
And you always hear, I tell people, it doesn't matter what case you had, there's usually somebody that had it worse, right? And it doesn't matter, there's people out there living with chronic cancer. I tell people, it's like, yes, I've been through it 3 times, right? It was It's been metastatic. I've had it metastasize to other parts of my body. Yes. Am I losing it? Do I not have half of my right lung and part of my left lung is gone? Yep. Do I have a right arm that's probably not going to work 100% ever again? Yep. Do I have chronic cancer? No. Is it terminal? No. Right? And those folks there, that's the group that I'm always praying for and thinking about, because you're literally, with chronic, you're living it day to day, and there's not an end. Like, there might be an end goal down the road, but it's not right now. And when you hear terminal, there is no long. The end goal is being comforted and transitioning peacefully, and I'm not there. And so I tell people, it's like, I got 2 feet, I got 2 legs under me, I got 2 feet, I got 2 hands today. I'm going out for a walk after we get done here. I'm going to enjoy life. And I tell people, it's like, even if it's just one more day, so be it. But I know we both got a lot more days in front of us that we're going to enjoy.
Yeah, it's that one day at a time.
One day at a time.
Hey, I know I woke up today. I'm here.
Yep.
And I'm going to make today the best day ever.
Absolutely.
Because you can't go back to the past.
Nope.
That's done.
Yep.
Nobody knows what the future is.
Exactly.
So enjoy today.
For what it is.
Because nobody's guaranteed anything.
No.
Except for the next. I'm reasonably sure that I'll make it to tonight.
Yeah. I got to see the sun come up today. That's a great day. All the other things that we have in our lives that stress us out. I tell people, it's like, if it's not a bad diagnosis and it's not something in your health, there's a lot of bad things that happen to our lives. We lose loved ones, all that. I tell people, it's like, you're still here, and you get to live each day, and you get to make an impact, maybe on your own life, maybe on other people's lives, but you're here, and you're special to somebody. I always tell people, at the end of the day, I was like, you're special to somebody. And so that's the way I live.
The name of the show is Generating Gratitude, and obviously you just unofficially announced all the gratitude things that you're grateful for. But gratitude and generating it is important, because the bad stuff, the negative thinking, when I'm negative, when I'm practicing a dry drunk, self-pity, resentment, and anger are 3 of my comfortable friends.
Yep.
They require absolutely, nothing. If there was an Olympic event or a World Cup event for self-pity,
yep,
I would be gold medal.
Yep, exactly.
And learning to live with gratitude and looking at a situation, and instead of taking that negative stuff, gleaning the positive.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's like a skill.
Exactly.
That's a mindset.
It's a mindset. You got, like you said earlier, all about the training your mind, training your faith, training your spirituality. It's training the mindset. Being positive. People kept asking, man, you're remaining positive through this experience. Oh, what else am I going to be?
Right.
Like me being upset about it is not going to make this situation any better. Last Thursday, I had a bad day. It was a pretty bad day. I hadn't had a day like that in a couple of years. And I got to the end of the day, and I sat there. I was like, you know what? Why am I getting grumpy about this? It's going to work its way. It's going to work itself out, right? Interpersonal conflicts, I tell people, it's going to work itself out.
Right.
But you got to stay positive about it and be optimistic. And I said, you don't understand what the other person might be going through. My big thing is always, like, try to be empathetic to other individuals, saying they might not be, they don't have the same, they might not have that positive mindset. They might not have trained their brain to be this
right.
way. How do I help them? How do we help them? How does the community help them? And so the show focuses on gratitude, and I tell people, it's like, I'm so grateful for my care team at the University of Michigan, care team at Mayo, my caring family, and the whole community in Frankenmuth at St. Lawrence Church, and my employer at Saginaw Valley and Saginaw County Board of Commissioners. Every one of my commissioners, my fellow commissioners, said, John, we'll see you when you get back. And I'll be back at the dais in August, and I'll be back. I'm heading back, slowly getting back into the office at Saginaw Valley State University, and looking forward to bringing that positivity to everybody else.
See, this is why I love talking to people that have experienced trauma, because they're so damn grateful.
Yeah.
Alcoholics that have almost lost everything, drug addicts that have almost lost everything, cancer survivors. It changes you. It makes you grateful for stuff, and especially in this toilet social media world
Yes.
that we live in, where everything is wrong and criticized, and being able to look at things with gratitude is just, it's like somebody opened your eyes.
Exactly. It's a whole new life, and it is. I hate to say, rock bottom when you get diagnosed with cancer. You kind of hit rock bottom, but you do.
Yes.
And when you're looking back up, saying, "Wow, all those little things I let negatively impact my life. Why was I doing that?" That doesn't matter in the big scheme of things. And you kind of broadens your lens on life and how you should be viewing life. And all those little things that might have caused me stress before don't even cause me stress now. It's just, people are people. It's just like I control the things I can change.
Yep.
And the things I can't change, which are other people,
Right.
I can't. And all I do is I say, how can I help them? How can I? And there's things that might be going on in their life. They might have their own demons that I don't know about. Right. And by having a conversation, I always ask people, do you want a bottle of water? Do you want, opening up doors to them at Saginaw Valley? I always, whenever there's a student or somebody behind me, I open the door for them. And I always say, good morning or hello. Now, it's harder now because they're all wearing earbuds all the time.
Yeah, they're all.
But the ones without the earbuds on, and they say hello, and they kind of look at me surprised. They're like, "Oh, why are you talking to me?" One of these things. So I always encourage people. Said, "Hey, all you got to do is one person per day. You say hello to them, or good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. You're going to positively impact that person. You might not get the response back that you wanted, but somewhere down the road, you positively impact that person.
It's the karma thing.
It's the karma thing.
I can't control other people, places, things, or events. The only thing I can control in life is my most valuable piece of real estate, which is between my ears."
Yep, exactly.
Wow. John, we got about a minute left. Real quick, name me 3 things that you're grateful for today.
First, my family. I'm always so grateful for them to be in my life. 2, grateful for my faith community that I've got around me. They're just amazing human beings. And then finally, the last one, I'm just going to be a little bit selfish, but I'm grateful for my health today. A lot of people might not say that, but I'm very grateful for the health that I have today and staying positive for tomorrow.
John Kaczynski, 3-time cancer survivor. We've had an amazing conversation today, and I hope people listen to this and get uplifted, because there's so many negative things, and we're gleaning the positives out of it. We're generating that gratitude. And again, with that, our time is over. Thanks, John, for being on the show. Thanks to our friends at WSGW, Matthew, for helping us out today. You're listening to Generating Gratitude here on WSGW. Remember this: can't be hateful and you can't be grateful. Your choice.